Let me tell you a couple of words about SuperJob. For those who don't know, it is the biggest job placement service with around 30 million CVs in our database. Over the last 20 years, almost every second person who found a job in Russia did it with our help. Huge information flows go through us. So we have some figures we could discuss. Moving on to risks. Here's the deal. Yandex announced that by 2022 or even 2021 they would roll out 1,000 or 2,000 unmanned taxis in Moscow. It might happen sooner. That's just Yandex, but there are other companies too. In the next 10 years, we run the risk of facing the situation when almost 90% of professional drivers will lose their jobs because they won't be needed. Part of them will be replaced by unmanned vehicles, part by taxis. So, in the next 10 years, 900,000 professional drivers will be freed up in the labor market. And as mentioned by the colleague who opened this meeting, there is no way we can retrain taxi drivers into software developers. They won't be able to find any other job except be a delivery man. This is one thing. Because of the considerable transformation of the transportation sector, people will stop buying personal cars because they are unnecessary and uneconomic. We are going to purchase services, and roughly speaking, all personal cars in the country will be owned by 3, 4, 5 companies. This will lead to a complete transformation of the insurance market and the advertising market, where car companies are major clients. People will start losing their jobs, and there will be big transformations, at any rate, in the transportation sector. To reduce the number of accountants employed in the country by a factor of 10, we need 3 months, tops, starting today. Not 3 years, not 30 years, 3 months. In terms of regulations, everything is already in place. The relevant technologies are in place. If Sberbank decides not to accept hard copies from legal entities anymore and to completely switch to electronic document workflow, which is currently used by around 7 companies, if Sberbank takes that decision, others will follow suit. Within 3 months, 90% of accountants will lose their jobs. According to various estimates, we have around 1 million accountants. Where will they go? Most accountants who aren't really accountants, but rather record keepers, people who enter primary data into the accounting and invoice-making software, can be retrained into business analysts. He is a widespread occupation, which is definitely going to be affected in the near future. One more thing, and I'm talking about widespread occupations right now because it is relevant for many people. For example, foreign language teachers. There is no point to teach foreign languages in ordinary schools today, not for any purpose. It was profanation in the past too. Today, it is a pointless profanation because of this little box that we all have in our pocket. We all have that little box in our pockets. It is capable of translating more than 100 language pairs both ways, much better than an average school teacher of any foreign language. When people ask me, who is going to translate Shakespeare? Well, those who translated him before. Those who studied English at an ordinary school won't translate Shakespeare. It's elementary. Let's move on. Major companies, such as Rusal, for some time now have been building unmanned mines. Major processing companies are building unmanned plants. Processing and mining industries, their cycle here can be longer, but in 20 years there will be a 10-fold reduction of employment, it's a ballpark estimate, in both sectors. Because of the ongoing robotization and digitalization, a lot of labor force will be freed up. And those processes, 100, 200, 300 years ago, stretched over several hundreds of years, such as craft production. The Industrial Revolution took a long time to happen. The digital revolution is setting in very fast, posing the risk of extensive release of labor force you don't know what to do with. Some of the future actions are quite clear. We've been asked today not to say what to do about it. Obviously, we're going to reduce the working week, not to 4 days, but rather the number of working hours in a working day. In the next 10 years, offices, state companies, the public sector will reduce the working day to at least 7 hours or even 6. A taxi driver might have to work less. It's a matter of regulation, minimum wages, etc. I think we will have to roll out the pension reform. Because retirement age increase is nonsense, in my opinion, which does not solve any problems. And the very notion of the retirement age, as we know it, is obsolete. It should be abolished. We need to rethink the entire thing. We will talk about basic unconditional income, how and for what reasons people are going to receive it. We'll get to that. To reduce the risks, strategically, we need to change the system of education. Because digital economy requires digital people. What is digital economy? It is medicine plus mathematics, agriculture plus mathematics, the parliament plus mathematics, anything else plus mathematics. We are very bad at math, and with the current approach, there is no hope that the situation will improve. We have the State Program of Education Development in the Russian Federation. Is anyone here familiar with that key document? Anyone? Since most of you are not, in conclusion, I would like to quote the objectives declared at the state level, for which billions and billions of budget money are allocated by items. Just a second. The objectives of the program and their significance by years of implementation. Objective 1. The quality of education, which is characterized by maintaining the leading positions of the Russian Federation in the progress in international reading literacy study, PEARLS, and trends in mathematics and science study, TIMSS. Improving the ranking of the Russian Federation in the program for international student assessment, PISA, not lower than the 20th place in 2025. Inter alia, maintaining the positions of the Russian Federation in 2018, it was adopted several years ago, in scientific literacy, within the rank from 30 to 34. Improving the ranking of the Russian Federation in 2021 in scientific literacy, not lower than the 20th place. In reading literacy, not lower than the 22nd place. Blah, blah, blah. Clear, isn't it? Where we are and what objectives we are setting for ourselves. When I read this, a story comes to my mind. The son goes to his mom and says, "I want to get married." In the ranking of the blondes, I'm okay with the 30th place. And in the ranking of the brunettes, I'm okay with the 24th place. As for brown-haired ones, I'm okay with also the 30th place. The mama says, "You know what, son, even with the 2nd place you won't have much of a future, let alone the 34th. Until we have clear objectives in education tied, among other things, to the digital economy and not to rankings, but rather to more pragmatic targets. For example, Russia should have the highest life expectancy, which then translates into targets in education. Or we should have the highest in the world output of light oil products, which then again translates into specific objectives in education. Anything, rather than being number 34 in the ranking. For the Russian Empire to be number 34 or even 28, how do you explain that to a child or the parents? That they need to invest into ranking 20th. You can't. This is all sad nonsense too. And if nothing is done about it, which is up to the parliament, we won't get far. This is it from me regarding the risks and what we should do. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Alexei. Can you feel already this problem, this threat in your line of business? We can see that the labor market is changing. We have a huge deficit of IT specialists. If right now the market gets 10 times more IT specialists having the same level of skills that they have today, all of them will find a job within a day, without their salaries plummeting down. The number of jobs in back offices has stopped growing long ago. In case of accountants, it has started decreasing and will continue doing so incrementally. The demand for drivers is huge and is not met domestically, but by migrant workers, which is a matter of separate discussion. This is so because while car-sharing services are rapidly developing, people still have not given up on personal cars, and the regulation is not yet ready for unmanned vehicles. Moreover, unmanned technologies are ready for use, and unmanned vehicles are already way safer than humans behind the steering wheel. There are individual stories of an unmanned vehicle getting into an accident, but if you compare the number of accidents and the distance traveled, the accident rate is 100 times lower than that of an average human driver. Everything has been field tested, and if the relevant decision is taken at the central level, we'll switch on to unmanned vehicles within 3 years. Thank you, Alexei. So accountants are at risk now. If a young man or a girl studies to be an accountant as a last resort because they didn't know where else to go, and it doesn't run in the family, there is no chance that they will eventually work as accountants. Thank you.